The Cincinnati Reds' busy deadline continues as the starting rotation just got a lot better.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff Carr, and that is Tim Daniel, not Stephen Offenbaker. He is stepping in for Steve, who is stuck on a plane somewhere. And we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans, been podcasting about this team for a while now, and we're glad that you're alongside us here today. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team. We're Cincinnati Reds every single day, and sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day. The whole lot going on now with the Cincinnati Reds. They have made good on not really promises they made, but rumors that have been happening that says, boy, oh boy, they're going to be busy. And they've made one trade, and they now made 2 as they have acquired starting pitcher Zack Littell from the Tampa Bay Rays. And in exchange, they send Adam Cervanowski and Brian Van Bell, both pitchers, to Tampa. And then Adam Cervanowski went somewhere else as well. But that doesn't matter because that's not part of the whole Reds thing. It's all about the fact that the starting rotation just got deeper. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why I kind of like the interesting possibility that this opens up for Chase Burns. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. And then later on, we'll look at what else they need because, quite frankly, they shouldn't be done because the trade deadline ain't over yet. And there's some other options out there. That's all coming up on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. All right, Tim. Man, I'm so stoked because the Reds have been busy. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that they took the huge, massive swings that we all hoped, dreamed, and maybe slightly doubted that they could. But I think they took 2 important swings. The second one coming late Wednesday night when they acquired Zack Littell from the Tampa Bay Rays. The starting rotation now has its depth, and they're shored up. And I feel a lot better about it moving forward.
Yeah, it's really funny that, of course, as you know, when you do the daily podcasting that we do, Jeff, this broke as soon as I hit end recording on the postcast on Wednesday night. Yeah, never fails. But yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, Zack Littell just pitched Wednesday night for Tampa against New York through 5 shutout innings and had, sans his matchup, funny enough, against the Cincinnati Reds last Friday, has had a pretty solid season. Like you said, this is nice because as far as the innings limit for Chase Burns, the potential innings fatigue of Nick Lodolo for never pitching this deep into a season, not knowing what the future holds for Hunter Green, but it sounds like that's sounding more and more positive. Getting Zack Littell in here just certainly certifies that a little bit more for this team. And I really like the move. I think that it makes a lot of sense. I don't think what you gave up is going to hurt you like big. I thought it was going to be a little bit more. Shout out Gordo for misleading us all with his details.
Saying a major leaguer, and it wasn't.
Yeah, he's on the 40-man roster. We're using technicalities here.
Right.
But I think it's a nice pickup. I think it makes a lot of sense. So I'm really happy with the move. And I feel like the fact that we're seeing the Reds make 2 trades on their end, receiving good players at the trade deadline, certainly feels like tides are changing.
Yeah, you and I were discussing the fact off air that it's like, yeah, a couple of years ago, the Reds were making trades, but they were all seller trades. They were getting rid of guys. And while it was interesting, I wouldn't necessarily label it as fun.
Right.
I label this as fun. And the move for Zack Littell for me is about a couple of different things. Number one, it's about what the guys that they have on the roster and the uncertainty surrounding them moving forward. Because Nick Lodolo's had a great season, but you're right. We're entering into uncharted waters for him. Hunter Green made a rehab start the other day, and by all accounts, he was feeling good, if not, dealing with some cramps, but Shohei Ohtani could tell you about that. and he was feeling all right after that start. So hopefully we'll see him back here soon. And Chase Burns, while Nick Krall has said that they used to have an innings limit on him and now they don't have an innings limit on him. I saw this the other day in an article somewhere, and I don't necessarily know what all it means, but I still believe that they're really only going to have him pitch like 120 or 130 total innings between the minors and the majors. A guy like Zack Littell now makes you really happy about where the rotation sits, because the Reds had Carson Spires, the Reds had Rhett Lauder, the Reds had Wade Miley, the Reds had, at least last year, they had Brandon Williamson and Julian Aguiar, and all of those guys, to varying degrees, are hurt and not going to be a factor for you the rest of the year. So you go out and you make this trade. And Zack Littell is a very interesting pitcher because there's some stats that I think people can grasp onto and be like, why did we go get this guy? Like,
right.
Be upfront, be transparent about it. Dude leads the majors in homers allowed.
Mm-hmm.
But he also leads the majors in walks per nine, as far as how good he is at limiting them.
Yeah.
And walk percentage is like only behind Tarek Skubal, as far as like the number of batters he faces and the percentage of them that it walks. So I really like what we've got out of him, and there's so many different reports or reporters that are coming out and saying, man, this guy is really reliable.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's really interesting is he kind of has a very similar track record to Nick Martinez, in the sense that he's a guy who can be a reliever, he's a guy who can start. So, and for the Reds in this circumstance, I feel like it's worth the risk because, one, obviously the contract is favorable because it's an expiring, for those in basketball terms who know what we're talking about there. And the other is that, you know, you could use some multiple options. So, you know, you can basically like fluctuate him and Nick Martinez. You can go a 6-man rotation for a little while if you have to. The possibilities now, I wouldn't say are endless, but they're certainly more open for the Reds now moving forward, because Littell is a guy that can just gives a little bit more of like a utility pitcher almost. And I think that's something that really benefits the Reds. I mean, you took like his season this year. So he's made 8 less starts so far this year than he did last season. He already has a complete game, and he's almost already, with how well he's been this year, almost touched his inning total from previous season.
It's very interesting to see how that all is going to work. But outside of all of that, we saw Littell a little bit, like you mentioned, a week ago, and the Reds were able to kind of touch him up. But like looking at his season as a whole, dude's got a 5-pitch mix. He throws a slider, a split finger the most. He's got a 4-seamer, a sinker, and a sweeper that he mixes in there. So he's got a lot of different things he can call on. Not any one of them just really blows you away, but it makes it so that he can continue to deceive guys at the plate, and he doesn't just have that one pitch that he has to lean on. And honestly, I think I cannot remember who said it, and maybe it was you. There were so many tweets that are going through my head, but somebody shared a picture of him, just like, man, I get like Dan Straley vibes from him. And I'm like, hey, if it works out the way Dan Straley did here in Cincinnati, then this is a big time get, especially if you can then flip him for Luis Castillo after the season. But you said expiring contract. That's not going to happen. But that's the other part of this too, right? Like the future isn't uncertain now because you required a guy that's got multiple years of team control. He's here through the end of the season, and then all of this young pitching that the Reds have can continue to do its thing next year and not worry about, well, now we got this guy that's just going to be here. That's not a problem moving forward either.
Yeah, it certainly seems like Rhett Lauder is definitely in the major league game plan for 26, considering Zack Littell and Nick Martinez are both off the books at the end of the season. So that's a good thing. I'm very happy to hear that. Very high on Rhett Lauder. I think there's a lot of upside there. Brady Singer, obviously, you have another year on after this as well of control. So that's promising. I wanted to ask
you've got possible opening day starter Chase Burns.
Hey, who said that? What idiot said that? What idiot was feeling the vibes that night?
Just messing with you on that one. But no,
it's 100% justifiable. Did you by chance, I think I might have sent you the video, did you watch Zack Littell's like post-game interview?
I did. He seemed, but to be
I felt
fair,
so bad for him because he probably wasn't,
right.
There was so little he could say. It is being brought to him like.
And that was the funny thing, because I saw some sarcastic tweets of folks like throwing different things around. I know our friend Chad said, man, he sounds really excited to be a Cincinnati Red. But it's like, dude just got off the mound down in Florida against the Yankees. And then they're like, hey, by the way, you just got traded. How you feeling? It's like, what's he supposed to say? Like, golly, get me out of here. Like, I'm really happy about that. Like, He's not gonna say that in his own clubhouse. So anyway, no, I'm happy to see this trade from the Littell side of this. But what Zack Littell means for Chase Burns the rest of this year is very intriguing. We got to get into that next. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, lime, and ginger flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I mean, I was down in Kiowa a couple of weeks ago playing golf in the afternoon in South Carolina. Yeah, I was like 95 with 105% humidity, needed some energy. 5-Hour Energy absolutely came in clutch. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use the promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, those are some fun days too. Get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Thanks for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. For our everydayers out there, thank you so much. And if you're not an everydayer, hit that subscribe button. That way, you get everything we've got coming for you. The Reds are going to make some more moves. I got a feeling at least one more trade. So we're going to be back with you when they do make that trade. And we're going to be with you all throughout the stretch run. So hit that subscribe button today. You'll also, of course, get the Reds Postcast with Tim Daniel going live at the end of every Reds ball game and in your feed, or your audio feed, shortly thereafter. All right, Tim, so this Zack Littell move is very good for who he is and what he brings to the rotation, but I am very intrigued at the possibilities with Chase Burns because I think this opens up the possibility of moving him to the bullpen. Now, I say that just in the premise of the rest of this year. He is going back to the rotation next year. He is a starting pitcher. He is a potential ace for the future. But given what should be an innings cap and given the words that Nick Krall has said about there not being an innings cap, or at least not sure if there's an innings cap, you could prolong that and make him a part of a playoff roster by moving him to the bullpen, and Zack Littell opens that up. What say you?
So, first off, I want to make sure we make mention. We did find out Adam Serenowski is going to the Dodgers. So we
I did see that. That's interesting.
But I think I'm in the middle of you and Steve on this because I know Steve is like not in love with the idea, and I know you are intrigued by the idea, and I'm intrigued by the idea, but I also understand not messing with what's going on. But here's what I'll say. Let's say they do sneak in and get this last wild card spot. And let's say they're in Los Angeles playing the Dodgers. And it's 4-4 in the 7th inning. And Chase Burns comes in out of the bullpen to get a couple outs. Did you just get goosebumps? Did you just get a little fired up? Yeah.
Because he can. I mean, he's got that electricity with the fastball and with the slider. And you bring him in and you're just like, look, dude, we need 3 outs right here. We're going up against these Dodgers. You got the top third of the order who he pitched really well against for the majority of that start. Like, I really think that there's something to this. And I know that we are all shell shocked. We all have PTSD about the fact that Aroldis Chapman came here under the guise that he was going to be a starting pitcher, and the Reds put him in the bullpen that year and they never took him out. I don't think that happens with Chase Burns. I think that Chase Burns, I'm not going to say unicorn. I feel like unicorn is thrown around too much when it comes to like talent in sports, not just in baseball, but he is an uber talent. And I believe that if you say Chase Burns do this thing, Chase Burns is going to do that thing. And if the thing is you move to the bullpen for a couple of months and then next year you work back up to be a starter, I don't think he's going to have any problems with that.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't seem like something that like would mess with his psyche, right? It certainly seems like the one thing you can tell when he is out there, no matter how the game's going, he's not afraid of anyone. I made mention on the postcast the other night that everyone was kind of talking about that pitch he threw to Ohtani that he grooved. And my response to it was like, yeah, he probably shouldn't have thrown that. but I absolutely love that he had the confidence to throw that. And that's what I want from the young
he's
guy.
He's the best player in the game, and he's like, let's see if he can hit this. Like, he wasn't facing like the number 9 hitter for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Well, he plays for the Reds now.
But yeah, he's not facing the guy that's going to swing through it. But I love that confidence too. And it's funny because as we're talking about this, I can tell that the spider senses are tingling for Steve, because he can tell that we're talking Reds and he's stuck on a plane. So he's texting me about this, and he's just like, for everything in the world, I really wish I was on this show right now, because he'd be trying to shout me down. I know it for a fact, because he does not like the idea of putting him in the bullpen. But when you really look at some of the things, like we always talk about, different times through the order and things like that. The first time through the order for Chase Burns right now, I get it's a tiny sample size, but the first time through the order, he has a strikeout to walk ratio of 4.3. Like, I really feel like this could be a weapon. And all out, like what the Washington Nationals did with Strasburg. Yeah. Why did I want to say Salisbury? Anyway, it was, my mind's in a million different places tonight, and it's late. But I really like what this could do with Chase Burns. At the very least, this moves Nick Martinez to the bullpen, and then you could just put Burns in AAA and whatever. But I think that would be a waste, and I don't think that's what the Reds meant for when they brought Chase Burns up and then saw all this crazy talent that he's got. I think they need to use it, and I think this is the best way to do it.
Can I ask you something without potentially bearing the lead on Seg 3?
Let's do it.
Do you think bringing in Zack Latell meant the Reds felt like they might be able to flip Nick Martinez for a bat?
That's an interesting thought too, because they made a big deal in the press conference where they talked about getting Key Brian Hayes. They made a big deal about switching Taylor Rogers' salary for Hayes' salary, which I find interesting because, like, dude's got 4 more years left, so we're really worried about the rest of this year, and then we're just
for $1 million difference.
Pay the other 4. I think if it's a big deal, like, and Suarez is off the board because as we started recording, he got traded to the Mariners. But I think that the only way that works is if he is then part of a deal that acquires a major league outfielder like a Ramon Laureano, or, I mean, the Angels have positioned themselves as sellers, so I think Taylor Ward is off the board. Rhyming there. So I think that would be difficult to see because the deal's got to make sense. And I think that some of those guys are off the board. And I don't think the Reds are going to make a big swing. They've already missed out on Juwan Duran and Ryan Helsley, so they're not going to make a big bullpen swing with that. Yeah. So I think ultimately the Reds will end up keeping Nick Martinez.
Okay, yeah, I don't think you're wrong by any means. I was just curious because I thought, well, the reason I brought that up here was because of Burns. Well, is Littell the reason that they can kind of be like, they could put him in the bullpen and then maybe keep Burns and everything? Because like you said, did you say this today? I don't know, the days are running together, but you made the point of in the playoffs, like, you don't use a 5-man rotation.
Yes, yeah, I did say that today.
I think that's a fantastic point. I think that makes a ton of sense. So I think right now, you're probably right. Right now, they make the playoffs. Chase Burns is probably not in the postseason rotation, and that's okay. But there are ways that they can use him where he could be valuable.
And maybe that is the point to what Steve would say is that, okay, now that you have Littell and you have Martinez, you don't have to worry about what you do with Chase Burns. You can just kind of ease him out of the season now. And then you can bring in Martinez and Littell as your swing pitchers in the bullpen for the postseason where, if you, God forbid, you have a start where one of your main guys doesn't go so well and you got to pull him quick. Well, then you got these other guys that are stretched out that can go a little bit deeper into the ball game there. But I do love the possibilities of this, kind of like you mentioned with the flexibility of Zack Littell having been a relief pitcher and been a starting pitcher, because that value that Nick Martinez has brought to this team, while I don't necessarily know that it lives up to a qualifying offers worth of millions of dollars, has been super valuable.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was awesome in LA on Wednesday. He was fantastic.
Yeah, and he's done an interesting thing where it's like he starts and then he relieves and then he starts again, and he actually does well going in between and not even taking that long in between. I do like to see that, but I find the possibilities of moving around the pitching staff very intriguing. But as you mentioned, there are still moves to be made. And I think that there are still a couple of trades that the Reds are linked to that there's one of them, man. Oh, I mean, we'd be right back on here just doing backflips. If you can't watch the show on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. We're on every single one of them out there. Go check us out today. And when you're done watching this show, go check out Locked On MLB Game Night. That's over on the Locked On MLB feed. They watch every game every night so that you don't have to. All right, Tim, yeah, there's still more moves to be made, I think. I don't know that the Reds are done. The Reds have not made that big trade of prospects that everybody worries about, that they're like, oh, they mortgage the future, though. Oh, they'll never be able to succeed ever again. They traded away a single-A pitcher, a single-A shortstop, a triple-A pitcher that nobody was worried about in Brian Van Bell, and Taylor Rogers. That's all they've lost today. And I feel like they've still got room for one more move. And they were linked to Ramon Laureano from Baltimore. But they've also been linked, and I've seen this mentioned more than once by more than one person, to Stephen Kwan.
I was hoping this is where you were going with this. Yes.
I would love that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Sign me up. I will drive to Cleveland and pick him up and bring him back to like,
wait, because I get it. He's not the big bopper, and I know that that's been a point of frustration for the Reds, for us Reds fans, because yeah, we wanted that lineup protection and we dreamed for a minute about what that would mean if we got Suarez.
Mm-hmm.
But Stephen Kwan would do two things. He would give you a tough out on the lineup side of things, and he would be a sure out in left field, which the Reds don't currently have. Like, I love Gavin Lux to death, but he is not a left fielder. Like,
correct.
We've seen that now. We know that now. And I don't know that the Reds have enough time between now and the end of the season for him to figure it out, because by the time he figures it out, that might be too late for them. And I think ultimately what you want to do is you want to turn him into a super utility guy that you can kind of move around. They've already said that Noelvi Marte is going to be the right fielder. And at this point, like, I love what Will Benson has been doing here, but he can be your fourth outfielder, or Jake Fraley can be your fourth outfielder, or whatever. And you can have those guys be depth outfielders. Go get an everyday guy. And like Steve Kwan, it's going to be expensive, but I think it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. So the biggest thing you said there is an everydayer, and not just our listeners. Shout out to all our everydayers by all means.
Shout out to everydayers. Yeah.
But I feel like we can kind of say TJ Friedl is an everyday player, right?
Yeah.
How many major league teams that aren't the Yankees have two outfielders that are everyday players right now? Well, maybe the Cubs, Kyle Tucker and PCA, but so.
And Seiya Suzuki. I mean, he's not the best defensively, but you definitely keep him in the lineup, whether it's, but no, you're right. Like, it's, you can count on one hand the number of teams that have that.
Right. And so I think for that, it really jumps out to me. I think too, in the sense of like, I am pro. So Stephen Kwan and TJ Friedl, you can kind of do a lot with those two. Immaculate
range.
You and I on our individual shows have talked that we're actually really appreciative of what Matt McLain's turned his season into the last couple months.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that being said, the Reds 2 spot is still atrocious in the lineup throughout the season. And that's not just his Matt McLain's
Take the
fault.
pressure off of him. Yeah. That'd be
nice. But like a Stephen Kwan or a TJ Friedl, you could put in there. One of them hits leadoff, setting that up to get two guys on base in front of Ellie who are consistently on base. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. And then, of course, look, I like the idea of Ramon Laureano. Not as much as I like Stephen Kwan, obviously, but I would like that. I have not closed the door on Luis Robert, because it sounds more and more like the White Sox are like taking a little bit off. I text Paul Giannis to see if he could tell me what they were asking for. He left me on red. So I understand. Probably busy times for Mr. Giannis, and probably doesn't want to tell some schmuck podcaster anyway. But yeah, if I had my order, it'd be Kwan, Laureano, Robert. And I'm pretty high on Luis Robert still. He's had a really good July. I feel like going to a team that actually has direction and a plan could really help him out a lot. But I mean, Stephen Kwan, especially with everything going on in Cleveland right now, not sounding really promising. Like, yeah, I mean, I drive to Cleveland 4 or 5 times a year anyway, so it's just another trip for me.
He can carpool down. Look, you won't have to spend any money on traveling down, Steve. Just make it happen. Yeah, I think that would be awesome, because you're talking about a dude who right now gets on base 35% of the time. For his career, gets on base almost 36% of the time. and TJ's doing a great job of getting on base this year, and Ellie's doing a great job of driving anybody who's on base around to score. So I think that would be a great get. Quickly on the Luis Roberts side of thing, like I find that whole saga so intriguing because on one hand, you'll get a report that says the White Sox asked the Mets for Mark Vientos in a deal. And it's like, wow, that sounds like a lot. And then on the other hand, you'll have somebody reporting, well, the White Sox are not going to pick up his $20 million option, full stop. So they're treating this like it's his contract year and they're just ready to get rid of him. I'm like, those two things don't go together. Right. You're asking a guy for their starting third baseman and on one hand, and then on the other hand, you're saying, please, someone take him. And if they're leaning more that way, then I could see the package making sense because I remember the rumor package this offseason, and I swear it cannot be anywhere near that right now. Like, I get it. He has had a resurgence in July, and I don't fight that. But I don't think that's enough the 1 month ahead of these last year and a half for me to go, okay, yes, we'll give you whatever you want. Like, it's got to be a much smaller package than what was said this offseason.
I completely agree. And I'm not sitting here saying like give up Alfredo Duno for him by any means. That's certainly not what I'm saying, but I'm open to moving Chase Petty for him. I really am.
Yeah.
I don't, I think, I think that makes a lot of sense for the White Sox and it makes a lot of sense for the Reds. I know a lot of people are in here are going to be in the comments saying, how dare you, Tim? But I think that like a situation like that, like a Chase Petty, like a Jay Allen kind of deal, I can't imagine the White Sox are going to be like hanging the phone up immediately if you put some sort of package together like that.
Like I don't know if Blaze Jordan's in the top 100, but at least before last night, I know that no top 100 prospects have been moved in this trade deadline. So it would be intriguing to see a deal like that happen. And I think for Stephen Kwan, it would definitely have to be one of the Reds' top prospects.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe two of them. But I think ultimately you do that, then you really tell the fan base, because the fan base was not buying Key Brian Hayes as much as I was. The fan base at large was not buying that move. And then now Key Brian Hayes and Zack Littell, everybody's kind of leaning in a little bit. And while everybody's leaning in, it would really behoove Nick Krall to pull off one of these deals. And I think that we'll see that, because I think he understands how he is perceived right now, because there was this article, I don't know if you saw it in The Athletic. They did this thing where they talked to multiple executives around the league. They talked to Jerry DiPoto. They talked to AJ Preller. They talked to a bunch of different guys. Nick Krall was not one of the guys to talk to. So I think he's got to make a name for himself, and this is the deadline to do it. And he has written like the byline right now with these first two trades. He's got to finish the article. He's got to finish the article about himself with one more trade today.
I agree, because I feel like this is this might be the thing. This might be the trade deadline his job is riding on. It really could be a very possibility. I don't know. Maybe Bob and Phil are just kind of comfortable with what he's doing, but I feel like this is his chance to kind of solidify himself.
I'd say in a perfect world, yes. In the Reds world, I don't think so. Just because we know who we're dealing with here. But no, I do agree with you. I think that this is a huge trade deadline for him. And quite frankly, I had something written in pencil with these two deals. I've kind of erased that, and I've got it changed a little bit. We'll see how the rest of Thursday really pans out, and how I finish off that narrative that I was writing down. We'll see how that goes. But there's plenty more where that came from, because I'm sure the Reds are not done yet. And we'll be right here with you the moment that they make a deal, because you know that we're going to have you covered every single day. We've got you on the Locked On Reds Daily Show, me and Steve, Tim Daniel on the Locked On Reds Postcast. We're all about the Cincinnati Reds every single day. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. Now, make sure you go check out Locked On MLB. Sully's got you covered every single day with a league-wide view, and you've got Locked On MLB Game Night. They watch every game every night so that you don't have to. But until the Reds make a move, or until we just wrap this thing up with a special roundtable edition that we will have in your feeds for Friday with all three of us on the call, as long as Steve isn't still stuck on a plane, you can trust that we will be Locked On Reds every single day.
So do you think there's going to be something extremely uniquely deep fried in Bristol this weekend?
I saw a video about somebody doing deep fried spaghetti bolognese, and I don't know how I feel about that one. Just give me a deep fried Oreo. I'll give a deep fried Oreo.
Yeah, I'm with that for sure.